Greetings to all of my Erudite friends out there on YouTube. Welcome back to a new year and another episode of Erudite Magic. There's been a lot of discussion over the years about the subject of magic exposure, and we're talking about going all the way back to the 1800s, maybe even longer. And frankly, I've wondered for a long time, what's the dividing line between teaching and exposure? What makes it okay for someone to learn magic from one source and not from another to the broader magic community? Where do you stand on the subject of magic exposure? In my opinion, exposure is more rampant today than it's ever been, and I'm okay with that. But more on that in a minute. Magic history is filled with stories about infighting among magicians about the subject of exposure. Some of it is real and intentional, a la Val Valentino, the masked magician. But you also have some examples of intentional, but is it really damaging, like Penn and Teller, the bad boys of magic. Sure, they've exposed things like the thumb tip, the cups and balls, sleight of hand. But has it really done any damage? Of course, there are also some unintentional exposures that cost people. For example, David Devant, the noted English magician. He was expelled not once, but twice from the magic circle for exposure because he wrote up some explanation of tricks for a magazine. Even Professor Hoffman, the celebrated author of Modern Magic, More Magic, etc., at one point, what he did was considered exposure. And I kind of get it why people get so uptight about exposure. I understand that some of it is born of a genuine love and paternal instinct to protect the secrets of magic. But then again, some of it is just selfish. We don't want others to know how we do our secrets. We don't want them to know that they can be learned from a book. After all, everyone has to learn magic from somewhere. Without exposure, you and I wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion. And in another way of thinking about it, every book is an act of exposure. So it seems like the real question we're asking is, what is the appropriate way for a new magician or someone wanting to learn the secrets of our art? What's the right way for them to get that knowledge? Should it be free? Should they have to pay for it? Should it be money? Or should they just have to put in sweat equity? And besides the cost, who gets to determine what that price is? Whether or not you like magic out there for free, it definitely exists, and in my mind, it's more free and available than it's ever been before in the history of magic. Let's rewind the tape just a little bit. A few months ago, I did an episode on Mike Caveney's Classic Correspondence from Egyptian Hall Museum, Volume 4. In that episode, I asked people to write me a letter. One of my good friends, Len, wrote me a letter and reminded me of a source of exposure that is rampant today. But it turns out it's actually a good thing. His letter inspired this episode because it actually gives a way for magicians to get started with no cash outlay whatsoever. And even if you're a magician with a great bookshelf, you too can benefit from this resource. But it comes at the cost of exposure. This resource is available to almost anyone in a mid-sized city, at least in the United States. I can't speak for every country, but it is widely available and gives all of the best kept secrets in magic away for free. No, it's not Don's Magic and Books who is sponsoring this episode. Don doesn't engage in magic exposure, but some could argue with the deals that he offers on books, it's almost tantamount to that. If you don't already know about Don's website, he offers books, DVDs, tricks, and props at extremely great prices, and he has a wide selection of both used and new materials, so there's something to be found for almost every budget. And as if the prices weren't great enough already, he's offering you, my Erudite viewers, a discount via code EXPOSURE this week. That code is good for 10% off the lowest marked prices on the website, and if you order over $20 worth of media items, you'll get free shipping in the United States. If you're an international buyer and you want to know how much shipping might cost you, email Don and he will charge you the exact shipping cost. If you've been watching the channel for any length of time, I know you'll click that link in the description below because you know how awesome these savings are as you're looking to build out your library. Speaking of, libraries are the source of all of these magical secrets being given away for free. That's right, my friend Len wrote me to remind me about the magic number 793.8. 793.8 is the Dewey Decimal System number to indicate magic books in the American catalog. I'm guessing that while other countries may or may not use the Dewey Decimal System, I don't know, there are magic books on those shelves as well. And in case you think it's just kids' books that are in the library system, you'd be wrong. In fact, in my own library system, I was able to find books the likes of Bill Tarr's Now You See It, Now You Don't, Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic, Joshua Jay's Magic the Complete Course, also his book Big Magic for Little Hands. Nicholas Einhorn has published several books that are widely available in the library catalogs. I was also able to find more obscure titles like Percy Diaconis's Magical Mathematics, Matt King's Tricks with Your Head, George Schindler's Magic with Everyday Objects, and also the book that he co-authored with Frank Garcia, Magic with Cards, which contains some of the best card tricks I've ever read. Several of the Walter Gibson books are here, including Advanced Magic and Magic for Beginners. Magic for Dummies and The Complete Idiot's Guide to Magic are both here, as is The Amateur Magician's Handbook by Henry Hay. In my library system, I was also able to find almost all of the Carl Full Self-Working series, which are some great books of magic. Oh, and if you were reluctant to buy David Copperfield's History of Magic without checking it out first, most libraries have a copy of that. One of my all-time favorite books, Ted Anneman's Practical Mental Magic, is also in my library system. So as you can see, there is a huge variety of magic books that are available for free in your local library. So on the one hand, I recommend that you go check out your library. And as my friend Len points out, I almost can guarantee you it will be both an interesting and pleasurable experience. It's basically a treasure hunt when you go to the library. And it offers an opportunity to introduce another generation to not only magic, but the magic of books and the library. What books would you like to see in your local library for your own reference and for those who are getting started in magic and maybe don't have their own library yet? There are a couple of tips that I want to share with you to help you get the most out of your library experience. The first tip is to be sure that you check out both the juvenile and adult section of 793.8. Libraries don't always know how to organize these books, and in some cases they'll put books that are perfectly good to teach adults magic in the juvenile section. So be sure to check out 793.8 in both juvenile and adult section. The second key thing is that you can request magic books from your library system. So if you go to your local library and find that the selection is a little bit lackluster, don't be discouraged. It's highly likely that your library belongs to a larger network. For example, I live in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and my library has access to the CleveNet system of books. So any book that's in the larger Cleveland area, I have access to. All I have to do is go online and request that book, and they will ship it for free to my library and place it on a shelf with my name so that at my convenience, I can go down to my local library and pick up the book that has been shipped from another location. Oh, and when I'm done with it, I just have to return it to my local library and they'll take care of getting it back to whoever actually owns that book. I can't guarantee that your library will participate in a program like that, but most places I've lived in mid-sized US cities have a cooperative agreement with other libraries, which greatly expands the books to which you have access. Seriously though, with some of the quality of books that I saw in doing research for this episode, you have access to some really great magic, and almost anyone could get started and learn more than just the basics. Bringing us full circle here, I recognize that offering books for free, especially high-value books like Anneman's Practical Mental Magic and others, is somewhat at odds from protecting the art of magic from exposure. But the next time you're at a club meeting or a convention or otherwise hanging around magicians, take a look around. And if it looks like a geriatric waiting room, it's probably high time that we increase the level of exposure for magic. I want to thank my friend Len again for taking time to write me and remind me of what a great resource this is for both new and existing magicians to be able to go and take an adventure to a local resource. If you got started by reading library books, sound off down in the comments below with what book got you started. Or if you know stories about famous magicians who got started with library books, I want to hear those too. Don't forget to check out the link down in the description below to head over to Don's, do some shopping there this week, and save 10% with code EXPOSURE. Thanks everybody for watching. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about magic books. So until next time, all my erudite friends, keep reading.